Right, good evening everyone. Welcome to the Environment Southland Candidates Evening. Great to see so many people turning out in person on a pretty grotty evening, so thanks very much for coming along. This event is being live streamed, so I'm sure there's plenty of people interested watching from the comfort of their own homes. So thanks very much for coming along. Thank you very much to our candidates. We have 9 candidates here in person, and we've got another couple as well who couldn't be with us, who sent statements to be read out later on. Thank you also. I know we've got Mayor Rob Scott here. Welcome, Rob. Thank you very much for coming along. Got a couple of our own sitting councillors as well, some of whom have been elected unopposed, so they'll be back for the next triennium. So welcome very much to everybody. This is the format for this evening. We're going to start with a 90-second statement from each councillor, from each prospective councillor, each candidate. Time is going to be quite strict, so they're fully aware. 90 seconds, and that will be cut off. All of the questions that I'll be asked later on are completely randomised. There'll be a different order from everyone, so no one gets an advantage of always getting the last word. Just very basic health and safety and housekeeping. We do have an emergency exit over there. There's also exits out the front of the building. The toilets are through there as well. If there is any kind of emergency issue, please follow the direction of the governance staff who are at the back of the room, and they'll lead us all out safely. And just in terms of conduct, obviously I'm sure I don't need to say this, but this is very much a respectful evening with nobody talking over anyone else. No personal attacks. The candidates are here to put forward their own case, certainly not to belittle anybody else's, and no shouting out from the floor. Hopefully there will be an opportunity for some questions from the floor towards the end of the evening. We've got a strict 1 hour time frame here, so the live stream is all go. So we will be ready to start. We'll do a 90-second intro from everyone, and I'll say then we will get straight into the questions. So these will all be in order. Number 1, picked out of the hat, was Peter McDonald. Peter, you'd like to come up here? And away you go.
Thanks very much. I'm Peter McDonald, current councillor, and once again I'm asking respectfully for support for another term. But I won't talk too much about myself, just 2 key priorities that I'm standing on. First is on flood defence. Flood banks, whatever you'd like to call them, we're in a good position in Southland. We've been put in a good position for many years, but from the early work that was done through the late 80s and into the 90s. We found ourselves in a management phase. That stopped. We're going into a works phase. We're partnering with government, and we're very lucky. We're seeing examples all around the country of terrible flooding, but we're getting these programs. So first we've got is a $5 million program for Ariti, north of Winton. There'll be work south of Winton done. That bank is really important, so that's why I'm advocating for that, because that's in my area of Hokonui. There'll be work done in Invercargill and large projects done in the Matara. So we've got a government that's really keen for this, and they see the value in it. Secondly is on local government reorganisation. Mayor Scott here today, he's promoted a version of that. I'm fully supportive, not of the version, but of the need to go ahead and do that. So I've got 10 seconds left. Right, so that's all I want to do, and I want to say thanks very much for your consideration anyway.
Hello, I'm David Bryce, and I live just south of Winton and farm on the banks of the Ariti River. My vision for Environment Southland is going back to core business. In fact, that's what government wants Environment Southland and councils to do, because rate increases of 37% over the last 3 years are simply not sustainable. Expenditure in Environment Southland continues to increase into the future, and we need transparency over where that money is going and accountability. It is important to have accountability. We saw the airport pump issue blow out from a $3 million budget to $11 million, an $8 million blowout that we're all having to pay for. We've also seen gravel build-up has been a catalyst for damaging bridges and breaching stock banks. We need to do something about this. In Southland, we have those same issues. Action is needed on gravel build-up to protect our infrastructure, not more reports. And on local government rationalisation, I support whole of Southland reform. I commit to making sure, but until we have those options, I commit to making sure your rates are spent on essential expenditure only. I bring governance experience from and extensive knowledge of the Iredi catchment as a co-chair of the Iredi Catchment Liaison Committee. I look for your support.
Kia ora koutou, I'm Annette Trent and I'm a local grower, a community advocate and a proud Murihiku local. For over 20 years I've worked in education, supporting learners, families and teachers, which taught me the value of listening, collaboration and making decisions that put people first. In recent years I've carried those skills into community leadership, currently with the Southern Farmers Market and the Murihiku Kai Collective. I've seen how working together can strengthen our food systems, support livelihoods and build resilience for the future. I'm standing for my mokopuna and future generations because the decisions we make today about water, climate and air will shape the Murihiku they inherit. My North Star is simple: strong communities and healthy environments. My priorities are healthy, safe, fresh water, because everyone deserves waterways that are safe to swim in, drink from, fish, gather kai from and enjoy. Climate resilience that protects people. We need practical support that helps whānau and communities prepare, not just recover from natural disasters. Local food and regional resilience. Strengthening local food systems, protecting biodiversity and reducing waste will increase regional resilience and keep more value here in Murihiku. I'll bring a collaborative and inclusive approach to council, adding fresh energy, a bit more diversity, and I'll work alongside mana whenua and our communities to make practical, balanced decisions that protect what matters most. If you want a practical action, fresh thinking and a strong community voice, I'd be honoured to earn your vote. I'm Annette Trent. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Joshua Cumberland. My wife and I moved to Southland a little over 2 years ago. We live in Mataura Island. My professional background is in water engineering. I've spent over a decade working in river management in this country. I'm here for accountability. The people of Southland, and this problem isn't unique just to Southland, it's across the country. We're sinking a lot of money into local government and we're not seeing a reflection of what the people actually want out of it. So I've observed that the employees here are running this organization and that the elected councillors don't always have the required background to hold them accountable. I'm here to do that. My second focus would be to find a way to combine the councils in Southland for a model that works for us in a way that ensures that the same managers don't end up running it again. That's all I've got for now. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. I don't actually need the lecturing, I'm just going to look really short by standing behind it. Kia ora koutou. My name is Lindsay Lovelow. I'm coming to the end of my third term as a councillor for Southland, representing Invercargill-Rakiura. I currently am the chair of the Strategy and Policy Committee, which is the only committee of all of council, which means that I get the opportunity to wrangle all my colleagues on a regular basis. I'm a wife, mother, and aunt and daughter, not a grandparent yet. Thank you. So I'm very family, and we've been born in, well, not born here, but I was raised in Invercargill. I went all my schooling and then went to become an education professional, and I've also have a background in event management. And clean air and clean water are a given for me, so that's why I'm here. I'm a people person. I'm involved in a lot of not-for-profit organisations. I've just finished 10 years as a Diabetes New Zealand board member. And I'm currently on a couple of not-for-profits in Invercargill in the arts and community sector. So I've got a lot of governance experience. I've got connections across the TAs and across the Motu with regional council colleagues and locally as well. That is me. I look forward to talking to you some more.
Hi, I'm Lawrence Rodway. Now, my priorities for being on the council are developing new ways of river management to restore natural character to rivers and to help ensure towns and cities are not flooded and lives are not lost. Freshwater quality protection and restoration and coastal areas protection from inappropriate development and pollution. Wilding pine control to ensure our high country ecosystems are not lost. And control and removal of exotic pest seaweeds from our pristine coastal waters. I think an important role of the council is to communicate its work and the reasons for it to the general public. This gives the council credence and enhances its value. The work the council does protects water and air quality in the coastal environment and protects people from adverse climatic effects such as flooding so people can be safe and make the most of the benefits of living here. Helping the public understand this and how it enhances their lives is very important. I'm very experienced in managing natural resources in Southland. I have been a councillor beginning in 2007 and have worked to protect rivers, the coast and air quality over this time. And I know how this can be achieved for the benefit of the people of the region. The council needs to have a mixture of experienced and newer councillors to ensure we stay on track and also develop new ways of achieving our goals. Councillors with good environmental ethics are needed. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nathan Surendran. I'm a proud Southlander, raising 4 school-aged kids in Invercargill, so I share your stake in a healthy, prosperous future. Our people, land and rivers are treasures. Protecting them is common sense and our duty. I'm a professional engineer with 20 years background leading complex projects. I know how to turn big goals into practical value for money results. My late father, who was also an engineer, said the definition of an engineer is someone who can do for 50 cents what anyone can do for $1. I help build businesses scoping renewable energy upgrades, boosting jobs and national energy resilience. I've taught engineering and environmental management at SIT. I have governance experience as a long-term volunteer with the Wildlife Response Society and DANS, translating science into balanced advice. Good governance starts with listening, uses evidence, and plans for the long term, not the next headline. If elected, I'll champion smart flood protection, make every dollar deliver lasting environmental and community benefits, and keep decisions transparent and accountable. Vote for practical leadership that puts Southland families and future generations first. My tagline, which you'll see on the voting form, is resilience, responsibility, and honesty. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. It's great to see so many familiar, friendly faces here, and wonderful to meet some new ones too. I'm Roger Hodson. I'm a passionate Southlander, standing to represent the Invercargill Ward for Environment Southland. I work with rural and urban communities and am engaged deeply with them in freshwater restoration. I'm raising my family in Invercargill. I work over the winter as a ski guide, and I've spent my career in environmental science working alongside rural landowners, iwi, and urban communities to understand and develop solutions for freshwater ecosystem health enhancement. I'm focused on ensuring that a high quality environment remains for our future generations to enjoy, and I see climate adaptation as a priority. I've got a depth of understanding of regional council work and I'm open to local government reform across Southland. I've got a depth of practical and technical experience working in environmental restoration and management. I've also got relevant recent governance experience with the Southland Conservation Board, Guardians of Lakes Te Anau, Manapuri and Monowai, and the Whenua Hou Committee. I look forward to your support in bringing those skills to Environment Southland.
Good evening all. I'm Zebra Young from Kettle Flat Station up in northern Southland. Been here 30 odd years, so I know a bit about river management. I've just recently moved down to Gorge Road. We've bought a finishing property there, so I've covered both ends of the river so far. Look, I'm standing in Invercargill because I am living quite close to the boundary there now, but I think it needs another really strong farmer voice on the council here. So that's my motivation. I do have considerable governance experience, starting with being the inaugural chairman from out of Tuatapere, where I was born and raised for the first 30 years out there. So I chaired the Tuatapere Maternity Hospital Trust there for 9 years initially. So I've been involved with a number of other organisations, more recently president of Southland Federated Farmers and currently a director of New Zealand Beef and Lamb and also the New Zealand Meat Board. I am standing down from those two positions. I have indicated to the boards that I will be standing down in March, so I certainly will have the time then to commit fully to Environment Southland. So look, I respectfully ask for your support. River management is one of the key topics that I want to promote, so I would appreciate any support that I can get. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you everyone. I've got a couple of statements, as I say, from people who couldn't be with us today, a couple of candidates. The first one is Eric Roy. Eric is a candidate for the Invercargill ward. Eric says, firstly, apologies for non-attendance. I have a prior commitment to mentoring and judging public speaking at James Hargis this evening. I've been fortunate to have gained a great deal of experience with involvement in a number of forums locally, nationally and internationally, working for resolution of a number of issues. Now in the twilight of my public involvement, I'm focusing on Southland's needs. I want to devote the experience, knowledge and wisdom I've gained to making this province a place where it's safe to work and pursue a variety of recreational options. And at the same time, it's a place where my grandchildren will want to live and invest in. And finally, we have a somewhat unusual statement. I'll just read this one out straight and you'll see what I mean. I regret to advise that due to an unexpected change in personal circumstances, I, Nicholas Perham, am no longer able to commit to the role of councillor for Environment Southland. I unfortunately missed the cut-off to formally withdraw. If I am voted in, I will have to withdraw, which will cause a by-election. So please don't waste your vote on me. Thank you, Nick. I would put a footnote to that and say that by-elections are actually quite expensive. So I would wholeheartedly endorse what Nick says there. Right, thank you. Okay, on to the questions. This is a fun bit we've all been waiting for, I'm sure. Okay, right, first question is on fresh water. Improving Southland's fresh water is one of the council's top priorities. What practical steps do you believe should be taken to improve water quality? And how would you balance this with the needs of industry and the wider economy? First up is Josh. Have we got a microphone for Josh? Or do we got this one? Okay.
Thanks. I think the first thing to do that would be focusing on rebuilding trust between the rural sector and Environment Southland. The solutions for improving freshwater quality involve voluntary actions on farms around riparian planting, reestablishing legacy wetlands, sensible measures for planting on slopes, grazing practices. All of these are being enforced with the stick approach, and we need to focus on regaining trust so that this is the sensible options for farmers. We can't force it. So that would be my focus, just offering common sense, practical solutions for river management with flow-on effects on water quality.
Thank you. David.
Yeah, I guess for me, I think we should have the facts about where water quality is, because there's a lot of emotion on the subject. If you look at E. coli, for instance, a lot of finger pointing that the farming industry is the problem with E. coli. You've actually done 4 reports on the main stems that show that avian is where the bulk of the E. coli problem is. So we need to get back to a factual basis. We need to understand what water quality we're talking about. And we need to understand that water quality doesn't stop at the town boundary, where the Invercargill city wastewater, if it has less than a ½ kilometre plume, when it releases its effluent, is acceptable under its current resource consent. So it seems like a big double standard, but we need to just go back to facts. And the other thing, I was involved in a project on the Waikiwi at one stage, and the interesting thing with it was it went and looked for the problem, and when it found where it was coming from, it was proven that the things we were doing were making a difference.
Thanks, David. Over to, if you pass that one along, please, to Nathan.
Thank you. So water quality. We've got a lot of ambulance at the bottom of the cliff measures, such as the $12 million that the council had to spend, the city council, on denitrification of the water supply and deodorizing of it about 8-10 years ago. What I'd like to see is a fence at the top of the cliff, and that means stricter enforcement around the limits for pollution from all sources. And that is an unpopular opinion in some respects, but unfortunately, that is the reality of the situation we face. We have, some big industries and some big urban areas in this province, which leads to water pollution, and we can and should regulate them more effectively.
Thanks, Nathan. Down to Peter, please.
I think probably quite a few people in this room and my colleagues on the council understand my views on freshwater, but I'm also very practical. And this current government has blocked a pathway for us, a plan change pathway. So it's no good going down a track if you're not going to get a result in the interim. So I'm quite practical about that, but let's shift our focus to the things we can do. So wetland creation, farm planning, 2 big things that we can do ourselves without a notice from government stopping our plans halfway through. So I'm not saying not for a plan change to reduce nitrates, but the minister has been very clear recently in saying will not undertake any activity if it has a material impact on profitability or economics. So we have to be just practical on that. It doesn't go away, but it is for another day.
Next, please.
Freshwater and healthy environments. So everyone deserves waterways that are safe to swim in, fish from, gather kai from, and enjoy with our whānau. And that's what I'm pretty sure we all agree on those. Local waterways are central to our lifestyle, and I'm for combining science and Mātauranga Māori for smarter water decisions. I push for community-driven solutions that work for locals and balancing environmental health with practical, achievable actions. So for me, healthy waterways means healthy people, healthy environments and a stronger future.
That's Jeffrey, please.
Right. Is water quality that bad in Southland? I don't believe it is. Certainly there are some hotspots there. Look, we do need a balance between economic and social issues there. And certainly in terms of farmers, they're doing their part. They've done a lot over the last 10 years, and I believe they'll keep improving. Farm plans for me are certainly one of the ways going forward, as long as we can have farmers write them, and they don't need to be certified, but certainly audited when necessary. And that will empower farmers, I believe, to take a lot more interest with a carrot approach rather than a stick approach. So if they can be the ultimate owners of those farm plans, do the right thing, that's a big part of improving the water quality, I believe.
Thank you. Morris.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Yes, water quality. Water quality, that is a question. That's a very complicated question. The council has a lot of good programs going on at the moment that were initiated by the regional forum and recommended to us a number of things that we should be doing, and we're working on those, as including building more wetlands and planting streams out. And one of our biggest problems is nitrate pollution of our groundwater. We heard of the situation in Gorges recently. These are caused by intensive land use. And the only way to get our water safe is to have limits on the amount of nitrates that can be lost from any activity, whether it's a point source discharge, say from a town or a city or a factory, or from farming activities. If we don't have limits, we can have farm plans, they will help, but we really need to have limits that people can be tested on and achieve.
And to Lyndall, please.
Thank you. It's trouble when you're near the end. Okay, so for me, we need some clear policy direction first, followed by some strategies that are clear and achievable and outcomes focused. Secondly, we have got already some excellent science, and we should continue to gather good data along with Mātauranga Māori perspective and science to inform any of the decisions for outcomes. Wetlands are a big thing for me and us currently, and so the establishment of suitable wetlands in suitable places built into integrated catchment approaches, I think, are the solutions to freshwater right throughout the catchment from the top to the bottom, and that does include the estuaries.
Thank you. Lucky last on this one. So lots of good points raised by my friends here. So thank you for those. I won't reiterate them, but a couple of key points that I'd like to add. One is that over my career, I've developed a really good understanding of the issues from rural and urban perspectives. And yes, trust is an important part of that. Southland has invested heavily in understanding how its systems function. And one of the big learnings that's come out of that has been understanding around spatial variability. That means that different inputs may not have the same outcome in a different setting. And so it follows that there are a whole range of solutions, not just a single solution, that need to be applied. And it's communicating that, understanding how to identify the appropriate solution for the setting that council needs to focus on.
Okay, thanks everyone. Next up. Our changing climate is increasing flood risk and impacting communities across Southland. How would you prioritise investment in flood protection and climate adaptation, given the financial pressures currently facing council? And first up for this one is Annette.
Climate change is already affecting Southland, and we need practical plans to prepare, adapt and protect our way of life. Focus on flooding, coastal erosion and storm impacts already affecting our area and particularly the low-lying areas. So I would advocate for more investment in adaptation projects to protect homes, infrastructure and ecosystems, build community-led resilience plans so everybody knows the risks and how to respond, and advocate for central government funding. Locals shouldn't be carrying this one alone.
Thank you. Down to Roger, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Climate change is already impacting Southland. It's not just flooding. There's extended periods of dry weather that are starting to impact productivity as well. And we're also seeing reduced snow accumulation in our mountainous areas, which is having an impact on our groundwater availability at times. We need to continue to invest in understanding and communicating those impacts and developing a range of adaptation solutions. Again, the right solutions in the right place.
Thank you. For me, when I think about climate change in Southland, it's about our catchments and about our rivers and the threat that that will create. I'll give you an example. In Invercargill, in 100 years, it's going to be a 1 in 1 year flood. So what that means is 100 to 1 in 100 now. So it's going to be sea level rise is going to back up the city in those 3 tributaries that run down through the city. There will have to be surge containment increases in the top of that town. So that there's going to have to be stuff done all around this province, and it's very complex. We're not going to be able to get away with it with just one simple solution. So I'm fully advocating for the government partnerships that are on the table right now. There's about 30 of them happening around this country at the time, and we've got to be match fit as a council in engaging with government on that, and that's what we're currently doing.
Thank you. To Josh,
please. Sam, I didn't think I'd be quoting Jacinda Ardern tonight, but I'm going to reject the premise of your question. Climate change is not making us at greater risk of floods. It's a lack of basic gravel maintenance and targeted gravel removal that the council's neglecting that is putting us at greater flood risk. To illustrate that point, we have people sitting here tonight that think that the 2023 flood was worse than the flood we had in 1984. That's not correct, but it appears that way because the gravel has built up in the channel, and now we are wasting money on raising stop banks when we could be earning money by removing gravel in targeted areas. I do this for a living. I build computer models of rivers to simulate how they'll flood under different conditions. And I can tell you that the data we're getting from NIWA is not reliable. All you have to do is look at Cyclone Gabrielle to know that. There were historic floods in the 1800s, much worse than anything that's happened recently.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, flooding is an interesting one. You need to go back to the facts again, and the facts will tell you that the floods we've had recently have been much smaller than what we had between 78 and 87. So climate change is something, but if you go back to the 1900 one, it was massive. So we've gone through a period where there was much less flooding of recent. We will get more. However, looking at the schemes that we're partnering with or talking about partnering with government, they're not going to have stop banks any higher. And we really need to put transparency over what on earth, where the $5 million, $6 million is going. We know the money will be spent, but we need to make sure that it's an efficient, targeting the worst areas of that bank that might need an upgrade, rather than just spending it on the whole thing. So, yeah, we need to be careful about our expenditure, otherwise we'll have those big rate rises.
Great. Down to Lyndall, please.
Sorry, I don't like having my back to anybody, so I'll shuffle back over. It's a complex question. If you're talking about investment in flood protection, you're not just talking about flood banks. First of all, flood banks are not going to hold the water and then nobody's going to get flooded. That is not their purpose. You need to be clear about what they are there for. They're there to slow the overflows so that people are safe and then property is safe in that order. So if we're going to invest, we need to invest in the catchment-wide approach, where there are going to be a whole lot of different solutions to slow the water or channel it, bypass it into somewhere, I don't know. That's what we need to find out, right? That's the hard stuff. This is not about building up stock banks as higher and higher and higher, because that's just not practical. But also it's maintaining our connections to the rest of the world. We have to have lifelines to north and west, transport and communications. We have to keep them safe.
To Nathan, please.
Yeah, so I'm, excuse me, likewise an engineer and have a clear sense that climate change is a major factor in things that we're seeing in terms of increased intensity of storms, increased probability of large, high intensity events that overwhelm our existing engineered flood solutions. Yes, you could say, let's extract gravel. Is there a buyer for it in the region that will pay a price that allows us to extract it? That's a question I'd like to see answered. And what I would like to do is, see a lot more work put on slowing the flow down through the river. There's been a big project on that in recent times, so that there's less of an impact and less pressure on the stock banks and on the potential risk to the townships and the farmland that is seen as worth protecting. But some of it we need to give back.
Thank you. To Maurice, please.
Thank you, Nathan. Yes, to stole my thunder about slowing the flow. The council's been working on this in the Matara catchment and looking at ways to hold up the water as it comes down the river, to put into wetlands, to modify the riverbeds to some extent. Sure, we've got to maintain the stock banks, and we're currently spending a lot of money doing that in the Matara and the Arita catchment and the Whitestone as well. So those things need to be done, but we do need another approach. We need an approach which tries to retain the water so that the peak of the flood is not really high and steep, but it's slower and lower. And modelling that we've done based on this theory of slowing the flow, more wetlands, more natural riverbeds, shows that it does work. So, but there's a lot of work to be done. We need thousands of these little wetlands on farms throughout particularly in the higher country. But we also need to realise that we are not going to be able to stop water flowing into people's houses that are in dangerous places. So we're going to have to do something about managed retreat over the long term as well, and help those people that are in a risky situation.
Just to Jeffrey, thank you very much, Maurice.
Yes, climate change is a thing. We are getting changing weather patterns, but I wouldn't certainly be as an alarmist as some people here. Look, for me, flooding is probably the greatest risk for anything in terms of climate change for Southland. So we have 20 kilometres of the Matara River down one boundary up to our property there. And from what I see, maintaining very solid, efficient flood banks is the first priority. The other things that I see that need to come with that is some gravel extraction, some gravel redistribution, and possibly even some river realignment in places. So there's a whole raft of things, and certainly I'd be quite in favour of diverting some of those high river flows into a ponding area if someone's going to make that available. But if you only have 30 cumecs coming down the river at times, when you get 2,500 cumecs, that's a lot of water.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What's one thing you'd like to achieve if you were successful in getting onto council? and how will that benefit Southland? And we'll start off with you, Morris.
Well, I'm sorry, Sam, that this job is much more complicated than that. We need to achieve a lot of things. We need to achieve things that I talked about at the start. There are many things to do, and I wouldn't really like to say one thing is the most important, more important than any other than making sure that Southland is a good place to live, that it's safe from the things that we talked about, from flooding and from water pollution, and that people want to be here, they can have profitable businesses, and that it's an attractive place to live. So that's not just one thing, but it's a whole lot of things. We're doing a lot of that already, but we need to keep doing it. We need to have some new approaches. Some of the things that people have been talking about here today are really important. So, yeah, it's a big job.
See what Jeffrey's got to say.
Right, I suppose for me to try and be a populist, and I don't want to be that, but certainly keeping rates under control and local government reform is a big issue for me. For having 4 councils for 100,000 people in Southland seems a bit of a nonsense. That's 48 councillors, 3 mayors and a chairman. So we certainly need to go through that process and look at all the options when it comes to local government reform. And with that, I would certainly hope to see some significant movement in rates downwards, not upwards, like we've seen the last few years. So I think along with river management, some of the other issues, local government reform would certainly be one of the top priorities for me.
And Roger, please.
Thanks. Yeah, for me, keeping Southland thriving requires a commitment to long-term people-focused decision-making. It requires, an acceptance and embracing the concept that a healthy economy and healthy people are enabled by a healthy environment. And to that end, I'd like to see more young people engaged in regional council.
David.
I guess for me, the thing would be that your ratepayers' money is spent more efficiently, and so their rates increases are much less than they have been, and we've even got better outcomes because we take away the bureaucracy and the things that stop things happening around here, making it a much more efficient and common sense way that the council operates. There is a lot of wastage and a lot of time spent on reports and consultants when we should be actually putting more of your ratepayers' money towards doing what you're paying your rates for.
See what Peter's got to say.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. I guess my priority for the next term, if I was fortunate enough to get there, is to local government reform. We have infrastructure deficits on our horizon just approaching us from all directions. There's no doubt about that. We need to shift the model. We can't just sit here and say we need lower rates. We need lower rates. We need to be more efficient. Yes, we need to do that. The current model will not deliver what on the expectations of Southlanders. We have high expectation around levels of service. If we don't go down this path, we will have to have a discussion with Southlanders, and it will be around don't tell us what you want, tell us what you can do without. So that is coming to a town near you very soon. So my priority would be to carry the function of Environment Southland through into new entity, whatever that might be. We sit around telling ourselves how important freshwater is, climate change is, but I don't think it's important to everybody. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
The reality is that the next 100 years don't look like the last 100 years in many different respects. My particular specialism and expertise is in energy systems. We are going into an energy constrained future, which means that we will have limited ability to do things. So, there's lots of talk about increasing stock bank strength and increasing the length of them and so on, which in the future we won't be able to maintain. We can barely maintain what we have currently. So we do need to make some difficult decisions. And I believe within the existing regional policy statement, there's a load of wording around energy advice to the council, to the community. And my own experience from living off grid with photovoltaics and batteries in Invercargill is that it is possible, it's cost effective, and you can get a return on that, which could be used as a community to offset rates. So I'm an advocate for that.
So out of curiosity, could I just get a show of how many times does somebody have to lie to you personally before you don't trust them anymore? Some fingers up, please. Once, twice. That's what most people would say, right? So why don't we extend that to our government? Why do we allow our government to continue to lie to us and get away with it? My priority would be trust. We need to rebuild trust. Nothing we're going to achieve here is going to come if the rural sector in particular doesn't trust what Environment Southland is saying. We need to know where our money's going in this institution. We need to know what sort of decisions are being made here behind closed doors. I'm all for natural solutions to manage our rivers and our land, but that's not going to happen if nobody trusts this place, and that's the problem.
Thriving communities and healthy environments. So my the one thing that I would like to achieve is to have more community-led and community-focused initiatives.
Thank you. All of those things, because we're really busy, we do a lot. But the one thing that would be different for me is to have embedded in local government here particularly, some kind of youth forum, some kind of youth advisory panels that we can regularly hear from and give them some power. It's all very well, they can tell me all their good ideas if they want, but I'm one of 12. That would be my dream, is to have some under 25s or even under 30s regularly contributing to our decision making and empowered to do things without my permission, per se. That's it.
Okay. Right. One of the biggest challenges council faces is getting the community engaged in its work. What ideas do you have for improving public participation and helping people to understand the value of regional council decisions? We'll start off with you, David.
Well, I'm a co-chair of a liaison committee, so we have a fair go at this actually, Sam, getting people along and talking about the management of the rivers and things. And the way you get them along is you actually bring them up and invite them, and when they get there, you have an interesting agenda where they learn about all sorts of things, and they have a chance to share views with people in from council, and it's a two-way thing, and you take it, you put it out there in a way that's easily understandable, and you have council people there so that any questions can be well answered rather than I'll come back to you. So often as a chair, I talk to council staff and make sure that they've got answers to the sort of questions that will come up. Because there's nothing worse than going to a meeting and being told, I'll get back to you. Josh.
We already have a lot of potential with the community boards here at Southland District and our local catchment groups. I think the main problem is cynicism, so we need to get people more excited about projects here. As Roger mentioned earlier, a lot of the areas require different solutions, and the people that live there are the ones best to know that. And speaking to locals about river management, they appear far more knowledgeable than a lot of the staff here. So just empowering people at a local level to do what they know is right is what we need to be doing.
Well, we did have the regional forum, which was a very very good group that had a wide representation of people from farming industries, from other industries, from people in the cities and people in the town. That concept where you get people together and they met regularly for at least a couple of years to come up with recommendations for the council. And they've got over 100 recommendations of things that we should be doing, and that's came from people in the community. So I really like that concept. Lyndall talked about the youth, having a youth council. That's a really good one. Having more of these on a catchment basis as well, so that we've talked about having the catchment liaison committees. They're a relatively small representation. Certainly now that we've got the rates being paid for on a capital-based system, we need to have much wider representation on those groups, in my view. And that's something that I'd like to work towards over the next 3 years.
Thanks, Morris. Down to Jeffrey, please.
That's a great question. And look, it's one that just about every organisation struggles with, I think, is to get engagement with the communities or with the participants or voters. And look, I don't have a complete answer, but I do know that if things are not going well with any organisation, you'll get a far greater turnout to some form of meeting. But certainly, look, particularly in rural areas and probably in towns like Invercargill too, if you can get small groups with a great guest speaker and a good topic, you will draw people along there. But it's a real challenge to be able to get full engagement with the communities. And I think, as someone has said, trust with Environment Southland would go a long way to get greater engagement too, I think.
Peter.
Yes, I admit we can do better with engagement. There's a few reasons for it. Our plan change was due in 2025. There was going to be a comprehensive engagement in the community around that, especially the rural community. I don't get on the council just to come to council meetings and read through documents. I see it as a community service. And I know I'm speaking for some of my colleagues too. They want to get out and talk to people. They want to go and visit the halls and be put in front of people and talk and have the cups of teas and discussions. I want to be doing that. So I'm looking forward to doing more of that. Yeah, but we've got to have the issues to engage, and a coastal plan is an issue that we can engage on with people. We're finding there's a lot of opinion around that, and there's high engagement. But yes, we can do better.
Nathan, please.
So I don't think there's many people who really properly understand in the community what Environment Southland does, and I do think that we need to do better in that regard. My suggestion in the current state, notwithstanding the reality and the need for a change in our governance structures to meet the challenges of this century, is that we should do more in online engagement, actually, because that's where people are spending a lot of their time. And there's lots of time-poor people who can spend 5-10 minutes on their phone engaging in something that the council's putting out, putting polls out, those sorts of things. It would help people to actually give some feedback and feel heard and feel engaged. Then yes, wider face-to-face engagement if it's practical and affordable, but there are some challenges with that, and I'm not saying I don't support it, I'm just saying that let's start with where people currently are.
And to Roger, please.
Yeah, community engagement is absolutely central to regional council work. I've been doing that for a couple of decades in Southland, and there's a really strong social fabric to key into that exists already. A network of catchment groups, existing community boards, sports groups, and other rural support networks, as well as the urban communities. But I do think that Nathan's suggestion of increased accessibility and that's allowing flexibility, so not just in-person meetings, but also increasing the accessibility to online or other forums is important. And we need to do it regularly. We can't just do it once and put it on the shelf for 3 years. It needs to happen regularly so people can come back to the conversation and evolve their thinking, have the opportunity to digest knowledge that's been shared, and grow together.
Right, Lyndall.
Thank you. So firstly, there are a lot of existing networks, as Roger and several others have mentioned, and our TA colleagues are no exception, and in fact they're a great place to start. So maximising, going to where the people are is always a good start. Also, people are more engaged when they realise it matters to them. It either hits them in the pocket, or it's going to endanger something, or it's supremely relevant. So what's in it for me, or how does it affect me? So that's, I guess, where you start with grabbing groups of people together, or making it clear to them how it's going to affect them if this or this happens. Don't forget the schools. We have a fantastic Enviro Schools program. So these are opportunities to bring that learning right up and make lifelong learners and lifelong understanders. And I will bang on to anybody who will listen to me about what Regional Council does, because they don't know, and I talk about it all the time.
Thank you. People should understand what's happening and have a real voice in shaping the decisions. Holding more community kōrero sessions, using plain language to help gain more clarity. Improving digital tools was something that I thought of as well, and making council information engagement easier to access. And I'd like to be an approachable, available and accountable councillor.
Thank you. Right, we've got time for 2 questions from the floor. Who's got a question? 2 questions, right. Number 1, there you go.
Kia ora, just looking at a picture there of San Pio-Pio-Tahi. No one's mentioned the coast.
Okay, Jeffrey, what do you think about the coast?
The coast. Well, I grew up right on the coast up near Chilshark. So,
Coastal environmental issues.
look, to be perfectly honest, I'm not aware of too many of those issues there, but I do know that when Manapuri was raised and the water diverted out of the Waia, it certainly did have quite an impact on the environment there in terms of gravel being pushed down the river and gravel that built up along all those beaches back around towards Orohon. So we do need to be very aware of it.
Lyndall.
Thank you. You must have seen me chomping at the bit because I've got some thoughts already. So our regional coastal plan is overdue, so we've got to get that fixed, right? We've got to get that finished. But there are also and Peter mentioned the coastal plan, thanks Pete. Biosecurity and biodiversity issues on our coast are going to be a high priority. We've got aquaculture coming in, so so there's danger, Will Robinson, age. We've got to get our coastal plan done. And we've got the biggest coastline in the country, so we've got to get it right.
I haven't been too focused on the coast, but I agree with Jeffrey talking about the Waiau. You've only got 5% of the flow going down that river, and it's obviously blocked the mouth, and it affects the likes of Blue Cliffs Beach because there's no sand coming there. So we're interrelated with a lot of coastal things, but absolutely, it's one of their responsibilities, and we've got to look after it.
Councillor Roger, please. Thank you.
Yeah, Southland's blessed to have the largest coastline in the country to look after, and we need to plan for that into the future. There are some challenges ahead in terms of aquaculture and the risks that biosecurity present. We've seen that recently pop up with fanworm in Bluff Harbour. Fortunately, it doesn't appear to have become established, but we need to continue to invest in our coastal environment to ensure its longevity.
Councillor Josh, please.
Yeah, I sort of echo what David said about Blue Cliffs. We need to be very careful when the conversation about managed retreat comes up. around coastal erosion because that's not being fully understood before people are making decisions about it. In terms of biosecurity, I don't know enough about that to comment on that in the coastal setting.
Morris, please.
Yes, places like Milford Sound are pristine, and so is the rest of Fiordland, and in fact, most of the coastal area in Southland. If you put on a mask and dive into the waves, you'll see that it's a wonderful environment, a huge amount of natural biodiversity that needs to be protected. So we've got to put resources into doing that. Unfortunately, the cruise ships, which provide a lot of that, has dropped off a bit, so we've got to make the best use of the money that we've got. We do have aquaculture coming at us. There's a potential there. There's a lot of potential for jobs and income, but it needs to be done properly. And I think that people who are looking at doing that will do that. So it's a pressure environment, and we need to look after it.
A couple of minutes to go. We're finished.
Well, it's only a couple of seconds.
Yeah, this is really important. As mentioned, there's $1 billion plus industry that's gearing up in Povo Strait, and that will have to be serviced by comprehensive biosecurity programs. They need to fund their own programs. This is my view. We can't have land-based ratepayers cross-subsidising these very large industries, very large corporates that will come in. So I think that's really important that we set it up right at the very start.
Thank you.
Gosh, great question. Well done. Look at the map. We absolutely need to be focusing on that the coastline. I'm aware that the coastal plan is underway in some way, shape or form, and I'm just keen to get my teeth into it.
Right, down to Nathan, please.
Again, the future's not like the past. We've had a concerted effort in the region by corporate interests lobbying to reduce the environmental protections on our coastal plan through the changes, and that may bring some economic benefits. It will be to the detriment of the environment, and ultimately we need to think very carefully about the future generations and the potential for gathering from the natural sources of food that are already there, and the risk to those from expansion of that aquaculture.
Thank you. Final question, who's got it? That was quick off the mark.
Josh, you mentioned the fact of trust. The public perception of Environment Southland is not very good, and it is exactly as you have said it. Now I would like to ask the councillors, they have the right ideas, what they want to do. They need to look at the staff and know what is actually happening internally. And a councillor said to me on Saturday, one hand in here does not know what the other is doing. What would you do to
fix that? Right. Okay, well, it's going to be interesting to see what Lynn's going to say about that.
Oh, thanks, Sam. You're a legend. Maybe unemployed, no. I'm not going to throw our staff under the bus in this setting. Actually, I think that the majority of them that I have anything to do with work really hard. They know what they're doing. Our science team are particularly skilled. I shouldn't be picking anybody out, but actually they do a great job of managing the data that they gather. So I would just be disagreeing with you and saying that actually we just need to keep employing more great people so that we can do all the things that we need to do.
And to Josh, please.
Yeah, so I spoke on this a little bit. I see this as coming down to the fundamental structure of the organization. I'd be pushing for a decentralized model across Southland, combining the councils, but focusing on community-driven groups. So we're already seeing our best results with the catchment groups. I think we just need to put money into that while retaining a small core of technical staff for them to be able to work with.
Down to Jeffrey, please.
Look, I would throw any of the staff under the bus either, but at the end of the day, any organisation comes down to strong governance, and that's what Environment South needs, I believe. So it's really drilling into budgets on every every aspect of the council, but strong governance is in one phrase. Yeah.
Peter.
Thank you. Yeah, look, I'm not too sure about your comment. As a general comment, look, I understand that there's groups of people that dislike this organisation. That's not new. That's history of the catchment board. You go back many, many decades and that frustration is still there. Why? Because we're a regulator and we have that function. We don't have a choice to do government regulation. We're actually their arm in the region to do that. So it does make us unpopular. We are the guard dog at the resources, natural resources. So I do understand why there is frustration with us constantly.
Thank you. Well, I thank the staff here 100%. I've been on this council for a number of years, as I said earlier. The staff here are dedicated, they're well informed, they're well educated, they want to help the province, they want to make the province a profitable place to live in and for us all to enjoy. You've got to remember that this council employs one person, the chief executive, and it's the chief executive's job to make sure that everything works properly. If you get on the council, get on the Finance and Performance Committee, then you can look into everything that happens, all the finances, all the.
To Annette, please.
That's your job.
Okay, so my personal opinion, my ratepayer opinion coming in is that I do have trust in Environment Southland and I do back the staff. It is, as one of my colleagues said earlier, comes down to the governance, and I'm very, I'm very happy to put the work in and get the job done.
Great. To Nathan, please.
We have a slightly strange idea that governance should be completely separated from management in New Zealand. It's not the case in the rest of the world, and I think we should realise that you can't govern what you can't see. So actually better communication and a freer flow of information between the two layers. I also think that the CEO is the obvious place to start, and a CEO that will build a strong collaborative culture that allows for that free flow of information.
And to Roger, please.
Thanks, Nathan. Gosh, that's a concerning situation to find yourself in as a councillor. I'd hope that they perhaps go back to the CEO and ask some more questions about what's happening and clarify.
And to David, thank you.
Yeah, well, the answer to this one is stronger governance, because actually what happens in here is that people have this siloed mentality where one side is trying to do something like catchment and another side seems to work against it. So if you go back to governance, your chief executive, you should have KPIs and task them to do stuff, put a strategy in place that they follow through. That means that things are much more streamlined rather than what can be very frustrating for ratepayers.
Thank you. I actually may possibly have misled you when I said that was the end, because there is one more question. It's quite an important one. We do this one on a show of hands. Bluff oysters or cheese rolls? Hand up for bluff oysters. There we are, and cheese rolls. Right, okay. Josh, you don't need to talk? Nah. Okay, hey, that's been a really good, informative and quite intense evening. Thank you very much. Thank you for the respectful way that's been carried out. I think everyone's got their point of view across quite strongly. Thank you very much to an amazing turnout. Really surprised. We were a bit worried when we saw the weather packing in earlier on. So thanks so much. Can you please give our candidates a round of applause? If there's any chocolate biscuits left, please help yourselves. They won't keep till the morning. Thank you. Thank you.